Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Bannon or Airspeed Prime, the site super moderator for Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com, and this video is going to be a Avatar news update. I'm going to do this video in three parts. The first part will be comic news, the second part will be Korra news, and the third part will be Avatar The Last Airbender Online.com news. As I said in my last news update video, there's no news out there really, so most of this is going to be tiny snippets of information, but some of it's actually really interesting, so I may as well get straight into it with comic news. As some of you may know, New York Comic Con happened a few weeks ago, and there was a small bit of Avatar presence at the con. The first thing is that during the Dark Horse panel at the con, they mentioned two things about the promise. The first being that all three parts of it will be the same length, 80 pages. The second is that the parts will come out quarterly, so about every 3 months or so, which gives us an idea of when the complete story of the promise will be out and when it will be out in relation to Korra, which is late 2012 supposedly. So I assume that all three parts will be out before Korra starts as like the perfect lead into Korra. The second piece of information is not so good, is that on the floor of the con, near the Dark Horse booth, they were actually advertising the promise. They had a pretty big poster there. The problem is where they placed it. As you can see in this photo, it's not at all in view. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking like, that's really disrespectful towards Avatar. My opinion on it is that, yes, it is a bit disrespectful, but my problem would be more that they went to the bother of making this massive sign that probably costs lots of money and ink to make and produce and bring to the actual con, and then they place it there where it's not in view and they're not getting any advertising out of it. Another problem would be that Avatar could, in the future, if they get enough books out, be one of Dark Horse's biggest properties that they have. Star Wars is arguably their biggest one now. Avatar could be like number 2. Notice I said could. They really have to put a bit more effort in than just putting a sign up by a wall. Continuing on the subject of the promise, but away from New York Comic Con, the writer Gene Luen Yang was at, I believe it was called Anime Minicon, and he had some panel about something, and I believe he was asked about the promise, and there were 2 bits of information came out of it. I'm not sure if these are confirmed, but they're not too massive, so I presume they're true. The first one is that Azula will make an appearance in the book, and the second one is that Aang did not take away her bending in the same way that Aang took away Ozai's bending without using energy bending. In saying that, I did an incredible amount of word bending. Assume these are true. The first piece of information regarding Azula playing a part in this book is a really interesting piece of information, given that we know that Ursa may play some role in this book, so we may get to see a reunion between the two, which will probably play a really big role in terms of, can Azula be redeemed after what she did? Can she get over her mental breakdown in the finale? And I think Ursa is the only way that's going to happen. Myself, and I think many other Avatar fans, are hoping that there will be a scene in these comics where there is a heart-to-heart scene between the two, where they both admit to themselves and each other the kind of wrongs that they've done in their relationship. Azula realizing and admitting to all of the wrongs that she has done under the influence of Ozai, and Ursa admitting to Azula that she probably didn't pay Azula that much attention. She did focus too much on Zuko. Yes, Zuko needed more attention, given that Ozai pretty much hated him. But from what we see, Ursa really didn't handle her relationship with Azula very well. Ursa seemed quite rash with Azula, going more for punishment rather than kind of talking to her about her behaviour. So this scene could be amazing if it happens this way. What are your guys' thoughts on how a possible Ursa-Azula reunion might go? Next we move on to Korra news. Now this is where the information just completely dries up. There is literally tiny little pieces of information. And the first one will just be a sort of correction to something I said in, like, I believe it was one of my first or second Korra news video. It was that I said that JM Animation were back doing the animation for Korra. Actually, a new studio called Studio Mir, M-I-R, is doing the animation. It is comprised of like many of the animators that they have used throughout Avatar: The Last Airbender, starting from the unaired pilot. So it'll include people from JM Animation, DR Movie, and Moy Animation, I assume. The final piece of core information is music again. The track team seem to be the only people working on Korra that seem to be keeping the fans up to date. They do these little updates on their Facebook page, which I will link in the description if you want to like it and get all the latest track team news. They said they have done the mix for the first episode of Korra, which means that must be really close to being finished. And the most recent update is that they said they have done the second string recording for Korra. Unfortunately, that's all the Korra information that there's been since my last news update. And hopefully we get some new information soon, because we really badly need it. I've noticed like a lot on like our sites and loads of other Avatar fan sites that like the Korra sections on these sites are not very active because there's no new information to discuss. So please, Nickelodeon, release something. The final section of this video will be about Avatar: The Last Airbender Online.com site news. The only news there is to talk about is that about a week ago we put up the latest of our monthly community opinion pieces. This month the topic was, in short, shipping in Avatar, good or bad. More in depth it was to find out people's opinions on shipping. Does it sometimes go too far, or is it just always fun to discuss? So with that in mind, the reason I brought this up in this video is because I want to know your thoughts on how shipping was in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was too far? And I also want to know your thoughts on it as we go into Korra. So please post your thoughts on shipping either in the comments here on YouTube or on the actual post itself, which I will link in the description. So that is it for this video. I again apologize for the lack of information, but I really wanted to get out every single piece of information that there is about Avatar, just so everyone knows. Hopefully we'll get more soon. I'm expecting to see the preview for the first part of The Promise very soon. And as I say at the end of every video, if you are interested in discussing Avatar with other great Avatar fans, please consider joining the forums at avatarthelastairbender.online.com. So bye for now, and I will see you next time there's any Avatar news to talk about. Or as I mentioned before, I'm always on the forum at avatarthelastairbender.online.com.